that's what, was told to me, that to have a good relationship with food, you have to eat everything and just moderate it. So I quickly gained 40 pounds in 4 months. I
Oh
felt
man.
horrendous. Yeah, I
Yeah.
felt so awful. And my husband was sending me
Well, howdy everybody, and welcome to episode 164 of the supersetyourlife.com podcast. This is your weekly dose of entertainment, education, and inspiration to fuel your life inside and beyond the gym. Courtney Luna is a former yacht chef turned stay-at-home mom and carnivore content creator, co-hosting the podcast Eat Meat and Question Everything. She shares her recipes and health journey as she heals her body with a meat-based diet. She has a long history of yo-yo dieting and finally found the end of the road of what works best for her. Her days are no longer filled with obsessing about food and trying not to binge. Restricted dieting is now a thing of the past. Courtney now helps others break free from a carb and sugar addiction so they can live their best lives as well. Solomon wrote in Proverbs 15:4, "The tongue that heals is a tree of life, but a devious tongue breaks the spirit." Many of our clients and listeners are healing from various carb addictions and eating disorders, which is why Colt and I thought her testimony would resonate with you. Courtney, welcome to the supersetyourlife.com podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Of
I'm
course.
excited, a little nervous.
Oh, me too. I always am when I do it by myself. Normally Colt's the one hosting podcasts, but I like to jump in every once in a while. But I'm really excited. I've been following you for a while and I love all of your content, and I especially love the comment sections on a lot of your reels.
Oh, yes.
Just make me laugh. I'm sure you probably get annoyed, I would imagine, at some of people's ignorance, but it's life.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you're seeing Instagram because that's my most mild platform. That's
Really?
like nothing. Yeah.
So
TikTok.
TikTok. I don't have a TikTok.
They're horrendous.
Oh,
horrendous.
I'm sure it's bad there too. TikTok tends to lean more that way from what I've found. It's very controversial over there, but okay, so I kind of want to just start from the beginning, just about your journey when it comes to kind of what got you to the carnivore diet, if you want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, so I've had a long history of yo-yo dieting. I think I did my first Weight Watchers meeting at around age 13. And I wasn't like super overweight. I probably had like 20 pounds to lose, but it was suggested to me and I wanted to do it. So that was kind of the start of my food journey. And it was always about weight loss. I never really thought about health as much as I do now. I think I equated being thin as healthy. So you name it, I've tried it. Slim Fast diet, Special K diet, the cereal, not the drug.
Right.
Slim Fast, there's so many random things, like super low carb. And then I kind of went towards paleo, which I feel like, okay, we're getting a little better. And then I did keto on and off for about like 7 years, which again, like I feel like that was pretty good, but I still am realizing now that like the sugar, even though it was keto sugar, like those treats had a hold on me. It wasn't till now when I actually heard Serena, she's the one that I first heard talk about abstaining and moderating. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this all makes sense. Like I need to abstain from all those foods. Like I can't moderate it. So what led me to carnivore was I had finally, for like the second or third time, lost 50 pounds. And from doing low carb and keto, tracking macros, everything was great. And then I got caught up in this anti-diet culture BS on social media. And I'm like, yeah, like no foods are bad. Everything's on the table. I can eat, croissants and McFlurries, but only in moderation. So I tried that because that's what was told to me, that to have a good relationship with food, you have to eat everything and just moderate it. So I quickly gained 40 pounds in 4 months. I felt horrendous. Yeah, I felt so awful. And my husband was sending me these TikToks and for like a month. And one day I'm like, why are you sending me these? So he was sending me Paul Saladino's TikToks. And I'm like, are we not supposed to eat vegetables? Like, what is happening here? I'm like, this is nuts. Yeah. He's like, I need to look into it, but he just sent it to me. And so that was the start. And I don't know how I was so out of the loop over the past 7 years being in the keto space. I never once heard of carnivore. So that was my introduction to carnivore, was going animal based. I had no intention of going strict carnivore. My carb and sugar addicted brain was thrilled to keep the fruits in. And I realized quickly after like 5 weeks, I'm like, that's not working for me. I could eat a pound of ribeye and be satisfied, but then I would want to eat fruit. So
Yeah.
like my mouth was still wanting that sugar.
Mhm.
So I gave up the sugar and strict carnivore, and here we are 14 months later.
Wow. So that's obviously post having your kids too. So I can imagine that that in itself, when the weight loss journey after having kids is like thrown into that mix, it's always a little emotional. And my story is very similar to yours, where I mean, I wasn't always overweight, but kind of like 20 pounds probably could have been lost in the teenage years. I was an athlete and stuff. And so I started dieting so young, and it just messes with your brain. And then like you have all the different things that we're in, like when you're in middle school and high school and then college, and it's just, there's so many out there. So I feel like a lot of women kind of go through that whole like journey of it all, just very similar in that way. So, what does it look like for your guys' family? I'm assuming you guys, from what I've noticed on your guys' or your Instagram, your kids are very much meat based as well. Is your husband carnivore too?
Yeah, besides the
Cool.
7-layer dip he ate last night, throw him under the bus with chips. Yeah, he is carnivore. He will once in a while have some non-carnivore foods, but he can get right back on track the next day, and it's nothing to him. If I did that, it would set a spiral, and it would be awful. So yes, he is for the most part. My kids are very animal heavy.
Mhm.
They are not carnivore. I don't think that would be a bad thing, but it's just, I mean, the kids thing is my biggest struggle, really,
It's
because it's
hard.
also a mental struggle too. You worry about if you're doing the right thing and messing them up because, society and the higher ups and everybody says that, we should be giving them Fruit Loops for breakfast.
Oh my
Now,
gosh,
we
I know.
know that's not the healthiest, but yeah, I second guess myself sometimes. I get a lot of comments that I'm going to give them an eating disorder, or then they're not getting all the nutrients they need, which isn't true. So
Yeah.
how we feed them is very animal based, and we try to like just give them the education. Like they know that protein's good for their muscles. And if you ask my 2-year-old, you say, Hazel, what is fat? She'll be like, fat is flavor. And they know that like
That
fat
is
is good for
awesome.
their brain. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's going to be what's important, because I can't control what is on their plate the rest of their lives. So we focus on a lot of animal products, and meats, and they do have some other things. Like they do have fruit, but even that, I have to like reel it in a bit. Like I'm like, you guys are fruit addicts, you're sugar addicts. Like it's
Yeah.
still sugar at the end of the day. So I don't know. The whole thing is just so
Right.
hard, but we don't do a lot of grains. We do have some sourdough bread for them that a neighbor makes,
Nice.
and they have some rice sticks. That's pretty much on like the grain stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and they love it. So it's easy, but they also know what other things are. So that's kind of hard too. So I try and just control what I can keep in the house, because if I have cookies in the house, then they're constantly going to be asking for them, and it's
Yep.
going to drive everybody nuts. So
Hmm.
I like to be able to say, yeah, eat whatever we have in the house. So if
Yeah.
we go out to dinner, it's rare that we take them out to eat.
Yeah.
If we do, it's usually
Honestly,
like
those
in
are
and
not
out.
fun ages to go to a restaurant at anyways. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do in and out a lot, and I get
yeah.
them Flying Dutchman. But like yesterday, we went out to dinner, and it's like, okay, you're have the mac and cheese if that's what you want to have, because I don't want to, create these like food fears too.
Yeah.
So while I don't want
Absolutely.
them to be eating mac and cheese, I would prefer for them to have something else. We just try to like talk about it, like if you're going to have like a scoop of ice cream, let's pay attention to how your stomach feels, or you don't have to finish it. Like, let's listen to your body. So I think that's the key, at least what I'm trying to do right now. And I hope I
I
don't
know.
screw them up.
I know. I same thing here because our kids are very similar to yours. They're very meat based, but we do give them some fruit every once in a while. And I've just, because our son is 5, I've basically from the time he was 1, we started paleo when he was 1. Then we made our transition to keto and then carnivore. It's kind of funny how most people kind of go through that route, but anyways, I really saw a difference in his behavior once we went carnivore, because in our house, like you know, Colt really struggles. He's a bodybuilder, and he does it all keto carnivore, and it has a history of bulimia. And so we have to keep our house strict to what we're eating. We can't have anything outside of that because it's just not good for anybody, you know? And so, once we transitioned all of us to that way, I noticed a huge, positive just change in the kids' behavior because they weren't asking and on carbs and sugar all day, you know, because when they were before we kind of transitioned, we did like the goldfish and all that stuff that people think is good for your kid. Like my grandma constantly told me that, oh, these goldfish are good because they're whole wheat. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever you say. And it's amazing how when you pay attention to like those behaviors after they eat, just how it's so aligned with the food that they're eating.
Yeah,
And a lot of
it's
people
so true.
don't. And it's crazy that so many, like that today's world, or I mean, honestly, the world in general, not just today, but the history doesn't pay attention to that. And we were just at the parade for our town's 4th of July, like parade celebration thing. And they were throwing out candy, and our kids had a wagon full of candy. And I was just like, I can't, like, I mean, I kind of assumed that was going to happen, but it still blows me away that people think that it's okay to give kids that much candy. And I guess you think about like, you know, Halloween and stuff, but it's funny. It's just your mindset shifts so much. And then you go back to like looking at how other people feed their kids, or, you know, feed their family and themselves. And it's just kind of crazy that people can survive on that. And
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is like survivor's bias. Like, oh, we ate this way growing up
Yeah.
and we're fine. It's like,
Yeah.
well, are you fine? Maybe you could have been a lot better than you are.
I
But
know.
yeah, like it's just especially like the food diets too, that can like totally have effect on you know, their mental health and their
Yeah.
behavior. And I noticed a difference of my kids' behavior just having fruit. I remember like this is just like a few weeks ago, we went to a blueberry orchard with our homeschool co-op. And
Yeah.
later in the afternoon, I text my husband. I'm like, Archer's like on another level right now. Like it's insane. And he's like, well, what has he been eating? Did he have a lot of carbs or sugar? I'm like, well, he ate like an entire blueberry orchard. So yeah. And so everyone thinks, oh, like fruit is healthy, which I mean, I think there are some great vitamins you can get from that, but it's still at the end of the day, like your body's treating it like sugar. And he was just wild.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
hard
just
too.
the
And
blueberries.
I know. And I can't imagine like being in your position where you share the food that your kids eat in that way, because it has to be hard to getting all that negative, those negative comments, and just I can't imagine what else, but you know, DMs and stuff, because I get enough grief from my family, and they've kind of cooled off, thankfully. But in the beginning, like everybody just thought we were insane for being carnivore, to the point to where like I stopped telling my family like what we feed our kids. Thankfully, we don't live near any of my side of the family, so they don't see it on a daily basis. But I mean, we just relocated from Washington to Montana a month ago, and I've been kind of lax on the kids' diet. Like, I mean, lax as in like they're eating more fruit than they normally do, and maybe like some almond flour crackers that more than they normally do. And there was a big difference in their behavior. And I was like, okay, time to go back to the basics because going crazy. So yeah, it's crazy. Do you think that oh my gosh, I totally just lost my train of thought. Excuse me. All right, I'm just gonna go to the next question. So kind of switching gears here. I think it's awesome that you were a chef for a yacht. What was that experience like? And then how did you transition from that to doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, it was a lot of fun. I started out as a stewardess. And so I did that for about like 7 years total. But like towards the end, you know, working so closely with the chefs and always like having had a love of cooking, I was like, gosh, like I really want to do this. So one of my boats, the chef at the time got me another job where I was cook slash stew. So I was being a stewardess during the day, but also like cooking meals for the crew. So
Yeah.
that's how I started. And then after that, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. That boat was going to Alaska. I didn't want to go.
No.
Long story. My husband at the time now, my boyfriend, I'm like, I didn't want to leave him for six
Yeah.
months and go to Alaska. So I left and I'm like, because I would have been the stewardess. I'm like, I want to do cooking. And so I left the boat and I freelanced from there. So a lot of just random little trips where they would fly me out to the boat and I'd cook for like a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever they needed, and then they'd fly me back home. And
Well,
yeah, it was
that's
awesome.
a cool life. I will say
Yeah,
that's really neat.
yeah, it was really fun. And I mean, the only reason I stopped is because I got pregnant and I was going to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. And then you transitioned, after having kids into doing content creation from there then?
Yeah, I always, even before that, like I shared my journey a little bit online. I would share some of my food. And then before carnivore, I was showing up and sharing my low carb keto stuff.
Yeah.
No one really cared. No one had anything negative to say.
Right.
Once I shared, like, oh, I feel awful. I'm going to try carnivore. I'm going to take you along on my journey. That's when things started to pick up. I'm like, oh, okay. So once you get rid of the vegetables, then people have something to say.
Right. Oh, that's crazy. It is. I remember the day Colt told me that he wanted to go because we were doing keto for a while, and he had just read Sean Baker's carnivore book, and he told me he wanted to eat nothing but steak. I thought he was crazy because I didn't know anything about carnivore either. It's amazing how, like you were saying, when you're in the keto world, you don't really know much about that side, how it's just there. But yeah, I thought he was crazy too, but little did I know that it was going to change our entire life in such a good way. So, let's see. Okay, you just did the lion diet, and I have been considering, and Colt does a very much lion diet, but he does add in keto bricks because he's doing a contest prep right now. And so he very much follows Robert Sykes's contest prep. And so anyways, he loves that. And I just haven't been able to take that step to go to do like a lion diet challenge. Was it difficult for you to like cut out the coffee and the dairy and all that stuff? Or was it pretty easy?
It wasn't until it was.
Yeah.
So I lasted 3 weeks. I was supposed to do it for 30 days and I was feeling great the whole time.
Yeah.
It was easier than I thought. I'm very much like a black or white person. I can't be like, oh, I'm going to like cut back on dairy. It's like, no, I had to
All or
declare to the
nothing.
freaking world, like, I'm giving up dairy and coffee and doing lion diet.
Yeah.
Now, I just felt like I was getting antsy because I mean, part of my content and what I love is sharing recipes and
Right.
sharing my
Yeah.
food. So not being able to like be creative. I mean, there's only so much you can do with beef or whatever the other ruminant animals, but most of my recipes are going to have other animals and animal products in there. So that
Right.
was one of the main things. I'm like, can I cuss?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
I got shit to do. I need to get some recipes done. So that was one of the main reasons. And I just missed the other animals.
Yeah.
And, this happened to me when I did BBBE. At week 3, I'm like, okay, I can't take it anymore. I want my chicken wings, but I kept the dairy out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt good. I never got sick of beef. I didn't like have any like palate fatigue or
No
aversions.
aversions.
I no, it was good. I just wanted to get back in the kitchen
Yeah.
and get things done.
Yeah, I saw those noodles that you made. I am excited to see what your recipe is for that because those look so good. Because I like before switching our lifestyle, I'm Italian, and so like pasta was a big part of my diet. And I definitely missed, the family gathering, probably more the memories that go with it. But I'm excited to try those noodles. So whenever you put those out, I'm definitely gonna try them.
Yeah, I'm excited for those. So I just made like batch number 6, I think, today. I'm still trying to perfect it, but I just like a half hour ago fed some to my mom and she's like, wow. She's like, this is actually like really delicious. So I'm excited to share.
So are you going to share that like on Instagram or TikTok, or are you going to put it like in an ebook?
I'm figuring that out right now.
Yeah, cool.
I
I
do
will be
want
patient.
to, yeah, I do want to share it sooner than later because I do want people to have access to this. But yes, there's something in the works right now that might make me have to wait.
Yeah. Well, it is what it is. I'm excited for the day that is released though. It'll be so good. Okay, so do you track your macros at all?
I do sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's a good tool,
Yeah.
especially if I mean, okay, lion diet, I tracked out of curiosity, but I didn't force anything. It's just that's what I wanted to eat, and then I tracked it just to see where I was at. Super easy to, stay on track and eat what I quote unquote should be eating. I find when things get a little wonky for me is when I'm incorporating dairy. I tend to get a little bit more snacky or it's a little addicting for me. So I can definitely overeat when I'm having dairy.
Right.
So I do track sometimes just to make sure like, okay, am I really hungry or am I just wanting to eat this piece of cheese? So
Right.
lion diet, yeah, it was very easy to listen to my hunger cues, but
Yeah.
that damn dairy but I'm not going to go the rest of my life and not have dairy. I just need to figure out a good balance with it.
For sure. No, I totally have that same thing. I love cream in my coffee. I love cheese. I love sour cream. Like those are hard things for me to get past. And we did a challenge with a few of our clients a few months ago, so before we moved, where we called it beef, butter, and bricks, keto bricks. And so it was basically beef and then butter, and then we could have some keto bricks. Most of our clients are very much lion diet based anyways. And so they were just sticking with beef and then some did butter. But that was like the strictest I've ever been. And I felt really good. And I had no snacking issues because I knew what I was eating. And it was like, there was nothing to snack on. I'm not going to snack on ground beef or butter. I mean, maybe I would snack on butter, but it just, when you kind of keep it simple like that, it definitely, you can really track, like you said, those hunger cues. And then you're just really focused on not snacking, but just eating like meals and stuff like that. So
Yeah, exactly. Because I could eat bacon, salami, pork rinds with sour cream. I could eat that if I wasn't hungry. But with like steaks and burgers, as delicious as they are, if I'm not genuinely hungry, then I won't eat those.
yeah, for sure.
Oh, yeah. But I think macros can be a good tool for people, especially like if you're coming from a place of overeating and you're trying this way of eating, your hunger cues might be out of whack in the beginning. I think it's good to like get a visual, like, okay, what can I eat? What should I be eating to feel comfortable that I'm on track?
Yeah.
Or, the opposite. And if you're coming from a place of under eating, like here's a nice visual that, you can eat all this food and you shouldn't be afraid of it. Like it's okay to eat this amount. So yeah, I think it's definitely a good tool to use as you need it.
Yeah, for sure. Do you like, are you a fan of intermittent fasting? I'm not sure what your days look like, or do you kind of do like 3 meals a day? What does that look like for you?
I do fast occasionally. I like to follow like Dr. Mindy Pell's advice as far as with the cycles. So
Yeah.
I do not do any fasting the week before my period. So I will have like essentially 12-hour eating windows.
Mm-hmm.
I like to do it like intuitively. So if I wake up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm very hungry, then I'm going to eat.
Mm-hmm.
But if it feels easy to push it off a little bit, then I will. Or sometimes if I do eat early, then it's like, okay, then maybe I'll stop early and dinner will be done at 4 or 5. So
Yeah.
I kind of just go by how I feel because I do,
Intuitively.
yeah, like I like the benefits that it gives you, but I'm not gonna like force myself if I'm like
Yeah.
sitting there starving. So
Right. Especially like when you have young kids and you have to chase them around all day. If like you need some sustenance, then you got to do it. So yeah. Okay. So I bought your ebook yesterday and I went through that today, and I really loved your idea with the steak bites. I've never thought of freezing them and then putting them in the air fryer. That was great. But just curious if you can tell us some of the inspiration behind the entire book, because it's not just a recipe book. I love that it incorporates just like a lot of mindset and just things to consider when you're switching to carnivore. So is this something you use? Like, do you have clients? I'm not exactly sure what your business model looks like, but do you give that to people like as clients, or how do you use that to promote and what you're doing?
yeah, so I'm not taking clients anymore. I have done a few like group coaching stuff, but not doing that right now. So yeah, I feel like the ebook is just good for anybody who wants to get started eating
Yeah.
this. So there are only, I think I only actually have like 5 recipes in there. So it's for like everything else. Like granted, you can just start eating meat tomorrow and be on your way. But yeah, I talk about like macros and food freedom and organs and supplements, and I can't even remember what else is in there, going out to eat and this and
Yeah.
that. So it's like everything, like I feel like all like the most popular questions I get, whatever like people need to know, like, okay, if you want to start, like here, just read this thing.
Yeah. No,
This
it's a
could help
great
you get
place.
started.
Yeah, it's a good roadmap to just get started on a carnivore journey, because there's so many things to just consider and to think about. And there's so much information about carnivore out there. Like, I mean, there's some people that are just so extreme that they will only do carnivore or only think carnivore is eating raw meat, which really grosses me out because I cannot do that. So, there's just so much information out there. So I really enjoyed how it was laid out and how it was just an easy blueprint for people to kind of follow when it comes to starting their carnivore journey. So, let's see. Colt was wondering if you're willing to share what your macro ratios are. I know you don't track all the time, but he was just kind of curious if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so I aim for, I've been told like my goal weight that I should have that in fat and protein. So my goal is 130. I aim for 130 grams of fat and 130 grams of protein. I don't push it.
Yeah.
I feel like it kind of balances out, especially like with my cycle. There's like a week where I'm not that hungry at all. Mm-hmm. And it might be just considered like a little low on the calories, but I'm listening to my body. And some days, so those might be like even like 1,600, 1,700 calorie days. But on days that I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. And those might be like 2,200 calories. So I really do focus on at least hitting my protein goal when I am tracking. And it's easy. Once you've tracked for a while, it's easy to kind of know where you're at. Like for me, that looks like minimum a pound of meat, if not more. Usually, I mean, when I was doing just Lion, I was having 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds of beef a day. So yeah, I definitely want to focus on the protein and then having fatty cuts of protein. And if I do have chicken, then, paying attention if my body's craving some fat.
Yeah.
Bite of butter.
Right. Seriously. I was just going to ask, what's your favorite source to use for fat? Do you prefer like a tallow or a butter?
Butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I'm not going to eat tallow by itself, but I will sure as heck chomp on a stick of butter for sure.
That's a good snack sometimes. Okay. So what's your favorite, I guess, meat source then? Do you prefer beef mostly?
Yeah, we do a lot of beef, a lot of burger patties. I love ribeyes if we're having steaks. Mm-hmm. Skirt steak, I feel like is so underrated. That's another good one. Yeah. And yeah, we do throw some chicken wings in there, some salmon here and there. But yeah, I definitely prioritize beef.
Yeah. Where do you guys live again?
We're in Southern California.
Okay, so you have access to good seafood, which is nice. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, let's see. Oh, where can our listeners find your ebook? I wanted to make sure we have that plugged, and I'll also put it in the description box too, but just so you can share that.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess the easiest way, if you go to CourtneyLuna.com // whatever that way goes, links, LINKS, that pulls up the ebook, it pulls up my socials and whatever else, a page where like my discount codes for brands I'm affiliated with. So yeah, that has everything in, or just CourtneyLuna.com and you can find stuff from there too.
All right. I will get that in the description box. And then let's see. I think that was it for the questions I had. Sorry, I have my paper right here. That was it. That was really fast. I'm sorry that it's not longer.
No, that's fine.
But thank you so much for coming on. I've been super excited to have you on, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get back in touch with you, but it's been a bit crazy. So
you had a big move. No, all good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. If you found this helpful, please pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Your ratings and reviews got us to where we're at. If you're not subscribed, please do that so we can continue to grow the channel and share the knowledge. Thank you so much in advance. Podcast review of the week is from Matt's Ring in Norway. That was an awesome episode with some cool guys. Very inspiring. And now I am just begging for the blueberry muffin to come back as a staple brick because that was fire. I agree with you on that one, Matt. That was so good. And then our product review of the week is from Wendy in Minnesota. I got my Skullbells weight belt. Love it. Love the smell and the leather. It was actually pretty comfortable. Great job as Threadix. Thanks for the purchase, Wendy, and I'm so glad that you liked it. One last thing. If you haven't heard about Colt and Mark's new podcast with Jonathan Griffiths, it's called Carnivore Coach's Corner. They collaborate weekly to discuss listener questions, frequently asked questions at their one-on-one consultations, trending topics related to the carnivore diet and hypertrophy training. If you're a fan of the low-carb lifestyle or just getting into it, you can find them by searching Carnivore Coach's Corner on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Anchor, and Overcast. Thanks, everybody. God bless, and catch you on episode 165.